There are several songs in the Beatles' catalog where there's some controversy over who played what instrument or part on the recording. One of those songs is She Said, She Said, a song primarily written by John Lennon that appeared on the Revolver album. The band began recording the song on June 21st, 1966. It was the last song recorded for the album, and aside from another day of mixing, it was the last day of recording sessions. And it's a good thing the album was nearly finished, because during this recording session, John and Paul had an argument leading to McCartney storming out of the studio and not returning. This wasn't the only time a Beatle left during a recording session. Ringo left for a couple of weeks during the White Album sessions in 1968. Harrison walked out of the Let It Be, Get Back sessions in January 1969, returning a few days later. Paul storming out during the recording of She Said, She Said is not as well known, but it's likely the first incident of a Beatle bailing on a session. So how much of the song had been recorded before McCartney walked out? The way he tells it, he didn't appear on the track at all. He said John, George, and Ringo recorded the track as a trio. If we listen to isolated vocals, we only hear two Beatles, John and George. In the song's outro, Lennon and Harrison alternate singing these phrases.
She said, I know what it's like to be there. I know what it's like to be there. I know what it is to be sad.
Had McCartney been present, it surely would have been John and Paul singing. McCartney's memory isn't always razor sharp, though. According to session documentation at EMI Studios, where the Beatles recorded, of course now called Abbey Road Studios, the backing track contains two guitars, bass, and drums. This documentation contains errors occasionally, but it suggests that all four Beatles were present for the recording of the basic track, that Paul must have stormed out after he played bass on it, leaving only the overdubs to be finished by the other three. Let's look at the bass line itself. McCartney was, of course, the band's regular bass player, and was in a period of becoming extremely proficient on the instrument. While John and George could both play bass a bit, it was McCartney who was in the process of redefining the role of bass in popular music, along with James Jamerson, Duck Dunn, Brian Wilson, and Carol Kaye. The bass line on this song isn't completely out of the reach of Lennon or Harrison, but there are a few elements that point to McCartney as the player. One is the 16th note that precedes the scalar pattern on the E chords. That note is kind of bass player-y. It's somewhat unnecessary to the motion of the line, but it provides a little rhythmic kick or jolt. If a less experienced bass player were playing this song, it's unlikely they would include that 16th note. If it's not really locked in, it'll probably make the groove sound sloppy. And at this tempo, it's a little tricky to play if you're not completely used to the string spacing on a bass guitar. And those eighth notes that follow are played with a short, bouncy staccato articulation, which is pretty indicative of McCartney's playing. If you're just thinking about the shape of the line, you might play those notes legato or smooth. While the ascending line is leading us melodically to the root of the next chord, the punchy staccato notes are ensuring that the groove is bouncy and lively. Also, while it's not the most melodic line, for this era, it's pretty comparable to the bass lines McCartney would play while recording bass as part of the basic track. When he overdubbed bass lines, he had more freedom to experiment. When he played bass with the rest of the band, he tended to stick to somewhat simplified lines, because if he messed up, the whole band would have to start over, or there would just be a mistake in the recording, which happened sometimes too. We can also compare this bass line to the only other song on Revolver that featured a bassist other than McCartney, Good Day Sunshine. On that song, Paul played piano on the basic track, while George played bass, likely on a Burns New Sonic. And the bass line is exceedingly simple. It's entirely chord roots played in quarter notes, without any of the subtlety of the She Said line. Next to this Good Day Sunshine bass line, the She Said part sounds like the work of a real bass player. Finally, the Revolver box set, released in October 2022, contains a number of outtakes from the recording sessions, including an alternate take of She Said, She Said. This recording is instrumental. The band chose a different take to add vocals to. On this recording, we hear a bass line that is nearly identical to what ends up on the released version, suggesting the same bass player played on both takes. And, though they blend together at times, we do hear two electric guitars on this take, meaning that John and George played guitar and Paul played bass. And of course, Ringo played drums. So, despite McCartney remembering otherwise, all of the evidence suggests that he did in fact play bass on She Said, She Said. I have lots more Beatles and McCartney bass content on my YouTube channel. Like, subscribe. Thanks!